Pray without ceasing. 4 words. Most of us heard them a long time ago, maybe from a grandmother, maybe from a pulpit, on a morning you've half forgotten, and somewhere along the way, those 4 words stopped sounding like a comfort and started sounding like a bill you could never quite pay. So, before I say anything else, I want you to do one small thing for me, not out loud, just in your heart. Picture the last time you really tried to pray. You sat down. You meant it. Now be honest about how it actually went. Did your mind wander off to the grocery list before you finished the first sentence? Did you run out of words after about a minute and just sit there, not sure what came next? Did you get up feeling a little guilty, like you'd done it wrong again? If you just nodded at any of that, I need you to hear me, and I need you to hear me clearly. You are not bad at prayer. You were never bad at prayer. You were handed a picture of prayer that was never true to begin with. And in the next few minutes, I'm going to give you something simple, a way to pray every single day that you can actually keep, not for a week, not until the new wears off, but for the rest of your life. And I think by the time we're done, the word prayer is going to feel lighter in your hands than it has in years. I'm Pastor Robin Schwartz, and I'm not speaking to you from theory. I'm speaking from more than 20 years of sitting with people, at real kitchen tables, in hospital rooms, in the quiet after everyone else had gone home. And I cannot tell you how many of them, good people, faithful people, people who'd been in the pew their whole lives leaned in and admitted, with a kind of shame in their voice, that they didn't really know how to pray. So if that's you, you are in very, very good company. Now let me tell you what I'm not going to do today. I'm not going to hand you a complicated system with 17 steps you'll forget by Thursday. And I'm not going to tell you that if you just pray hard enough, in the right words, in the right order, then God will finally hand over the thing you've been asking Him for. That's not prayer. That's a vending machine with a stained glass window bolted on the front. I respect you far too much to sell you that. Here's the lie I want to pull out by the root before we build anything. The lie is that prayer is a performance, that somewhere there's a scoreboard, and way up at the top are the saints, with their hours of silent contemplation and their faces lit up like the windows of a cathedral. And way down at the bottom is you, with your tired 30 seconds before sleep takes you. Let me say that more carefully, because the difference matters. The lie is not that some people pray more than you do. Some people do. The lie is that God is keeping score at all. He is not. God is not grading your prayer. He is glad you came. Say that with me, quietly, wherever you're sitting. God is not grading your prayer. He is glad you came. Breathe. God is here. Hold on to that, because everything I'm about to give you grows out of it. I'm going to walk you through 5 simple movements of a daily prayer, not 5 rules. 5 movements like the parts of a conversation you'd have with someone who loves you. And the beautiful thing is, the whole thing can take you 4 minutes or 40. The shape stays the same either way. The first movement is the one almost nobody tells you about, and it's the one that holds up all the others. It's this: just show up. That's it. Before the words, before the feeling, before anything, you show up. I'll never forget Arthur, 74 years old, sharp as a tack, retired from 40 years of driving a delivery route. Arthur came to me genuinely upset with himself. He said, "Pastor, I've been a Catholic my whole life, and I'm only now learning to pray every day, and I feel like a fraud." And I asked him what changed, and he told me he'd stopped waiting to feel holy. He just started sitting in the same kitchen chair every morning, same chipped coffee mug, warming his hands, and saying, out loud, "Lord, it's me again. I'm here." That was it. That was the whole prayer some mornings. And Arthur told me that within a few weeks, something had shifted, not because the prayers got fancy, but because he kept showing up to the chair. There's a line in St. Paul, in his first letter to the Thessalonians, where he says, "Pray without ceasing." For years I thought that meant pray every waking second, which is impossible, and so I felt like a failure. But that's not what it means. It means keep the line open, keep coming back to the chair. So here's your work for today, and it's small. Pick the chair. Pick the spot, the kitchen table, the edge of the bed, the porch step, and tomorrow morning, just go there and say, "Lord, it's me. I'm here." That's a complete prayer. God is not grading your prayer. He is glad you came. And that leads us straight to the second movement. Once you've shown up, you praise. Now, I can almost hear the objection forming. "Pastor, praise feels fake when my life is falling apart. I don't feel grateful. Am I supposed to pretend?" No, never pretend. Praise is not pretending everything is fine. Praise is naming one true thing that is good, on purpose, before you start asking for what's wrong. It's the difference between walking into a friend's house and immediately listing your complaints, or pausing first to say, "It's good to see your face." You can pray a psalm for this. The Psalms are the prayer book. God Himself gave His people 150 prayers for every mood a human heart can hold, including the angry ones, including the ones that ask God where on earth He's been. Open to Psalm 103 some morning and just read it slowly. Bless the Lord, O my soul, and forget not all His benefits. You don't have to manufacture a feeling. You just read the words until they start reading you. And here's why this movement comes second, before all you're asking, because praise reorders the heart. When you start a prayer with everything that's wrong, your fears get the first word, and they tend to keep talking. But when you start by naming one true good thing, you're reminding yourself, before you ask for anything, who you're actually talking to. You're not begging a stranger. You're talking to the one who has already been good to you. In at least one way you can name this morning. I watched this change a man named Well. I'll keep his name to myself. But he came to me bitter, and I asked him to do just this one thing for a week. Name one good thing before he prayed about the hard thing. He came back and told me, almost annoyed, "It didn't fix my problem, but I'm not as afraid of it anymore." That's what praise does. So today, before you ask God for one single thing, name one good thing out loud. The warmth of the mug, a grandchild's laugh you can still hear, the fact that you woke up. Just one. Breathe. God is here. Now here is where it gets honest. And this is the third movement, and it's the one most of us were quietly afraid of. After you praise, you tell the truth. You confess. And I don't mean only the big sins you'd take to confession, though that matters, and I'll get there. I mean the daily truth. The resentment you've been carrying about your sister, the way you snapped at someone yesterday, the worry you keep pretending is just being realistic. Let me tell you about a woman I think about often. I'll call her Pauline, 69, a retired school teacher, the kind of person who corrected her own grammar mid-sentence. Pauline told me she'd given up on prayer entirely, and when I asked her why, she said something that broke my heart a little. She said, "Because the moment I get quiet, all I can hear is everything I've done wrong, so I just stopped getting quiet." And I want to be honest with you about how dangerous that is, because I've watched it. I have watched shame take a praying soul, someone who used to talk to God like a friend, and slowly, quietly, convince them they were too dirty to come to the table. And once they believed that, they stopped coming altogether. That's not humility. That's the enemy of your soul wearing humility like a costume. So here's what I told Pauline, and here's the reframe I want you to carry. Confession is not a courtroom where you stand accused. It is a hospital where you finally get seen. You don't hide your wound from the doctor because you're embarrassed you got hurt. You show him so he can heal it. So today, tell God one true thing you'd rather not say, out loud. He already knows. He's just waiting for you to stop pretending so he can hold it with you. God is not grading your prayer. He is glad you came. I'll tell you what genuinely surprises me about the way Jesus taught his own disciples to pray. They came to him, grown men, fishermen, a tax collector, and they didn't ask him for a miracle. They asked, "Lord, teach us to pray." Even they didn't feel like they knew how. And listen to what he does. In Matthew, chapter 6, he doesn't hand them a long, impressive speech. He gives them the "Our Father" short enough for a child to memorize. And right before it, he says something I want you to hear. Do not heap up empty phrases, for your Father knows what you need before you ask him. Stop and feel the weight of that. He already knows. The praying is not to inform God. The praying is to change you. Which brings us to the fourth movement, and this is the one that turns prayer from a monologue into a relationship. After you've shown up, praised, and told the truth. Forgive me for stepping in for one moment. I don't want to interrupt. I just want to be useful. I wrote a manual for the Catholics watching this, for the families who don't know what to do when the hour of death comes. The link is in the description below. You can read the first 2 pages before you decide. Now, back to the video. And you listen. I know, we're not very good at this one. We treat prayer like leaving a voicemail. We say our piece, we hang up, we go on with the day. But a conversation has 2 parts. So how do you listen to a God who doesn't speak in a voice you can record? 2 ways, and they're simple. First, you let him speak through his word. Open the gospel, even one verse, and read it slowly, and ask, "Lord, what are you saying to me in this today?" Second, you let there be silence. Real silence. 30 seconds of it. And I won't pretend that's easy. Saint Teresa of Avila, one of the great masters of prayer in the whole history of the church, struggled with distraction in prayer for years. She said she used to watch the hourglass, willing the sand to fall faster so her prayer time would be over. The greatest teacher of prayer we have, bored and fidgeting. And yet, she's the one who left us the most beautiful definition of prayer I know. She said prayer is nothing else than a close sharing between friends, taking time, frequently, to be alone with the one who we know loves us. Read that again in your heart, not a performance. A friendship, and I want to take away the one thing that makes most people quit at this exact step. The wandering mind. You get quiet, and within 10 seconds you're thinking about the dentist, the leak under the sink, somebody who hurt you in 1995, and you decide, see, I can't do this. Let me say this as plainly as I can. The wandering is not the failure. The bringing it back is the prayer. Every single time your mind drifts and you gently turn it back to God, that turning, that little act of love, is the whole thing. You could turn your heart back 1,000 times in 5 minutes, and heaven would count it as 1,000 acts of love, not one failure. So stop scoring yourself on whether you stayed focused. Just keep coming back, gently, the way you'd guide a child back to your side in a crowd, not yanking, not scolding. Just, this way, come here. There's a reason the little Carmelite, Saint Therese, said that for her, prayer was simply a surge of the heart, a simple look turned toward heaven. Not an achievement, a look, a glance towards someone you love. You can do that. You did it just now. So today, after you read one verse, sit in 30 seconds of silence and don't fill it. And when your mind drifts, and it will just look back toward heaven again. That's it. Just let the one who loves you look at you, and you look back. Breathe. God is here. Now, before the last movement, I owe you the harder half of this, because I know exactly what some of you are thinking right now. You're thinking, Pastor, that's lovely, but I have prayed every single day for 30 years, and on the thing that matters most to me, I have heard nothing. Silence. Don't tell me about listening. I want to address that directly, and I'm not going to insult you with a tidy answer. I'm not going to pretend the church has a clean explanation for why some prayers wait decades. We don't. What I can tell you is what I've seen, and what the saints witnessed before me. God's silence is never absence. It is always activity. When you cannot hear him, he has not left the room. He is doing something underneath the silence that you cannot see yet, and may not see on this side of heaven. There is a line in Romans, chapter 8, that I cling to, when we do not know how to pray as we ought. The Spirit himself intercedes for us with groanings too deep for words. Do you understand what that means? On the days you have nothing, no words, no faith, no feeling, just an ache, the Spirit of God is praying inside you, carrying upward what your own mouth can't form. The waiting itself is the work. God is not grading your prayer. He is glad you came. And this is exactly why the church, in her wisdom, gave us words to borrow. People sometimes think a written prayer, the Our Father, the Rosary, a psalm is somehow less real than the words you come up with yourself. It's the opposite. On the day you bury someone you love, on the morning you're too anxious to think straight, on the night you're so tired you can't form a sentence, that is when you reach for the prayer that's already there, worn smooth by 2,000 years of frightened, hopeful people praying it before you. You don't have to be original with God. You just have to show up, even if all you can do is let your fingers move along the beads of a rosary and let the old words carry you. Pray with words when your own words have run out. That is not cheating. That is the communion of saints, lending you their voice. Stay with me. Breathe. God is here. And on those days, and there will be days like that, days the words simply will not come. I want you to know something. I made a place for exactly that. I have another little channel, very simple, and it's called Pray with Pastor Robin. It isn't teaching, it's just us praying together, out loud, a few quiet minutes at a time. You don't have to lead, you don't have to find the words yourself. You just follow along, and you borrow mine until your own come back to you. So if you ever sit down to pray and the page in your heart is blank, go and look for it. Pray with Pastor Robin, and we'll pray the very first words together. That's why it's there. For the empty days. Which brings us, gently, to the fifth and final movement. You showed up, you praised, you told the truth, you listened, and now, you hand it over. You ask, and then you let go. This is where so many of us get stuck, because we think asking and surrendering are opposites. They're not. You ask boldly, Like a child asking a father, you bring him the diagnosis, the wayward son, the bill you can't pay, the marriage that's gone cold. You name it plainly. And then, in the same breath, you do the bravest thing a praying person ever does. You open your hands. You say, Lord, this is yours now. Your will, not mine. I trust you with the outcome. I want to tell you what Arthur, the man with the coffee mug, told me near the end of his life. He'd been praying for his estranged daughter for 11 years. 11 years, every morning, in that chair. And the reconciliation he begged for never came the way he pictured it. But he told me, with the most peace I've ever seen on a man's face, Pastor, I stopped praying to change God's mind. I started praying to be able to carry it. And somewhere in there, he carried me instead. And here's the part I think about. It wasn't all silence. The year before he died, a Christmas card showed up. No long letter, just her handwriting, and the words, thinking of you, Dad. 11 years of mornings, and what came back was 4 words on a card. To a man keeping score, that's nothing. To a man who'd learned to surrender, it was the whole ocean. He kept that card in his Bible, right at Psalm 103. That's surrender. It does not mean you stop asking. It means you stop demanding the answer. Come in your handwriting. So here is your final small action for today. Whatever you're carrying, bring it to God by name, and then physically open your hands. Turn your palms up in your lap. It's a small thing, but your body teaches your soul. Open hands can't grip and pray at the same time. Breathe. God is here. So let me give it all back to you. The whole shape. Simple enough to do tomorrow morning before the coffee's even cool. You show up, Lord, it's me, I'm here. You praise one true good thing, named out loud. You tell the truth, one honest confession, nothing hidden. You listen one verse, 30 seconds of silence. And you hand it over, ask boldly. Then open your hands. Show up, praise, confess, listen, surrender. 5 movements, 4 minutes or 40. That is a complete daily prayer, and you can keep it for the rest of your life. Now I want us to actually pray it together, right now, before you go. So wherever you are, just take a breath. Let your shoulders down. Lord Jesus, it's us. We're here. Thank you for one good thing this day, for the breath in our lungs, and the fact that you have never once stopped listening. We tell you the truth now. We have been afraid we were bad at this. We have stayed away out of shame. Forgive us, and bring us back to the chair. We're quiet for a moment now, and we let you look at us. Pause. And the thing we've been carrying, you know what it is. We bring it to you by name, in the silence of our own hearts. Pause. And now we open our hands. Not our will, but yours. We trust you with the outcome. Breathe. God is here. Amen. If God brought you to this video today, that wasn't the algorithm. That was direction. So do this for me. Hit that like button, because it's how this finds the next tired soul who's been quietly afraid they're bad at prayer. And in the comments, leave one thing, just one that you're going to bring to God tomorrow morning. Just one. I read every single one of them, and I pray over them. And if you know someone who gave up on prayer a long time ago, send them this. It might be the permission they've been waiting for. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May He lift up His countenance upon you and give you peace. And may He remind you every single day that you are loved, you are seen, and you are not alone. Breathe. God is here. See you next time. Before you go, a quiet word. If anything you heard today touched a place in you that has been waiting, a parent in her final years, a child far from the faith, a soul you've been carrying for years, I wrote a manual that may help. The link is in the description below. Read 2 pages. See if it speaks to your heart. May the Lord bless you and keep you.